Tuning in to Coder Conversations. If you want to catch up on any previous episode, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian Russick, professional drummer, drum teacher based out of the Suffolk County, Long Island, New York area. If you'd like to book a lesson with me, I could be found at brianrussick.com.
And joining us today is Jeff Badu, CPA and business owner. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure, man.
It's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show, man. Can you give us a little bit of information about your background? So you're a CPA and you also own a couple of businesses, if I'm correct.
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and raised in Ghana and came to the US when I was 8 years old. And fast forward, I basically went to the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where I received my bachelor's degree in accounting as well as my master's degree in accounting. I then went on to become a parallel entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier. And I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And we provide a suite of financial services, including our marquee company, which is Badu Tax Services. And that's the firm that provides tax preparation, tax planning, and tax representation services to individuals and businesses across all 50 states in the US. And we also have clients that are physically based in over 25 countries at the moment. That company eventually morphed into other companies, including our real estate investment company, Badu Investments, our financial literacy organization, the Badu Foundation, where we teach financial literacy to the communities. And lastly, my purpose in life is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle.
Nice.
Yeah, amazing, man. So let's dive into a little bit about your educational background, what led you into wanting to get into accounting and how that eventually led you to starting your own firm.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Definitely.
so
Yes,
what,
sir.
what had you interested in accounting over all these other fields?
Yeah, that's a great question. So overall, with the accounting, I grew up in Ghana, and ultimately growing up, you get to see quite a few things. You don't really understand some things sometimes, but in general, Ghana is a very entrepreneurship heavy environment. Basically, Ghana is a country where you really have to go out there and get it. In that there's no food stamps, there's no Section 8 housing programs, Social Security, retirement supplement, none of that. And so Ghana is a very hustle mentality. And so growing up in Ghana, it gave me the opportunity to be surrounded by entrepreneurs. Now, I didn't know exactly why they were doing those things in terms of, hey, they needed to do those things, to put food on the table.
Right.
I'm thinking like, hey, these are everyday individuals that are going out there starting their business. They're hustling and bustling. And ultimately, that's something they truly enjoy doing. But I didn't know that not only could they enjoy doing it, but they had to do it. They had no choice. So basically, Ghana sort of morphed me into that entrepreneurship environment. Both of my parents are also entrepreneurs. They're in the real estate industry, retail industry. So when you surround yourself with a certain group of people, you tend to become just like those people. So that ultimately made me want to become a business owner, start my own business. As far as the accounting goes, I was pretty good at math in growing up in middle school, high school. So math tended to be something that it was a subject that I enjoyed, right? And then I also had a love for money. Anytime somebody handed me some money, I loved it and I
Yeah.
wanted to make more of it. Right.
Right,
And
right.
so, exactly. And so the final point to that is in high school, this was junior year in high school, I took an assessment. It was a career assessment and it basically asked me a few questions and it unpacked that accounting was probably the best fit for me, the best career. And I did some research, learned that a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs have an accounting background. Accounting is the backbone of the business, and then got connected with mentors, YouTube, right? Just ultimately immerse myself in the accounting, and I chose taxes to be the core focus of what I do as far as accounting is concerned.
Oh yeah, that's really interesting. And also really interesting is you mentioned in Ghana because I know recently they had the year to return where like some African Americans they can go to Ghana and get citizenship, and like you mentioned, it's kind of a shock because there's no safety nets like there is in the United States.
Hmm.
So pretty much have to you eat what you hunt. So
That's
um,
right.
I'm sure that instilled a mentality in you to always kind of be actively pursuing after what you wanted versus hoping it fell in your lap.
Yes, sir. That is true. That's true.
So yeah, you kind of mentioned like just having a love for numbers and just loving to multiply money. So like over the course of your career, like what are some of the like mistakes people make when it comes to handling money, and what are some of the good things that you've seen people do when it comes to multiplying their money?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the biggest mistake is not having, and to be quite frank, this is one of those words like it's not always, it's not all on me. Some of it is on other people, some of it is on society and all that. But it's the lack of education when it comes to money, lack of education when it comes to finances, in that basically a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about. I mean, they talk about money. It's the most commonly talked topic on the planet, right? People talk money every single day. When they're home, they're talking money half the time, basically. So it is probably the most commonly talked about subject at home. But there is this lack of education, and to be quite frank, ignorance when it comes to money, in that basically we don't necessarily, a lot of people don't know how to properly budget. A lot of people don't even have a budget. And I would say it's twofold with that. There is the lack of education, which I think it's an inherent fact. It is a true statement, especially amongst, for lack of a better term, minority groups. But also then it's like, okay, we have all these tools, these technologies. You got AI. You go on Google right now, you search something, yeah, it will show you the AI summary,
Yeah.
and it'll literally walk you through step by step, right? Pulls the best resources and boom, right there in front of you. So then the question becomes, okay, all this education is out there, and of course, not every education is good education, but all this education is out there, and it leads me to that the number one root of all evil when it comes to money is ignorance. I believe the ignorant aspect of, hey, I know I should have a budget, but I don't have one.
Right.
That to me lets me know that there's got to be not just education, but the application of the education as well, and the desire to do something better, the desire to want to create wealth, to want to have a good financial house and stability. So I think it's twofold when we talk about the mistakes when it comes to money. It is the lack of education, number one, and number two is the ignorance in that the education is out there, and people just for whatever reason are scared to go out there and seek it, although money tends to be the number one discussed topic on the planet. Now, on the flip side, I would say this, in that I feel like the one thing that I'm starting to learn is that the newer generations do have more access to the technology. I think the newer generations are starting to value, the topic of money just a bit more, as far as like, okay, we have this information, we know money is important. We may have come from a household where maybe our parents went to college. Some parents didn't go to college. I know for mine, my parents didn't go to college. But in general, the newer generations, the Gen Zers of the world, their parents probably went to college, and so they sort of have this multi-generational aspect of it, that, hey, I'm forced to learn about money now because my parents learned about it, they know about it, and so if I don't learn about it, then it's almost like a shameful thing.
Yeah.
So I feel that with us having more access to the technology and the information is also one of the gifts when it comes to money in general.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like habits, taking action is also incredibly important because a lot of people they have all the book knowledge, but for whatever reason they're never disciplined enough to actually open up an investment account, start investing regularly. So, like you mentioned, it starts at the home because a lot of schools they're not teaching you how to be responsible financially. So,
Hmm.
creating a home atmosphere where the habit is ingrained of taking a portion of your money, saving it, and then doing something with it, not just letting it sit in a bank account, not collecting interest.
Absolutely. Brian, were you going to share something?
I guess, I wanted to know what is the most, specific or exact instance of, someone kind of going off the wrong path. Someone like you said, no budget, but beyond no budget, what are some of the things that you're noticing that are lacking in people?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the general concept, discipline, lacking the discipline, but more specifically, it's not saving money, not having a saving plan. Usually, you want to have 3 to 6 months worth of your day to day expenses, liquid cash in the bank, preferably in a high interest earning savings account. And so it's not having savings. The average person, they say, is $400 away from basically going into financial distress.
Wow.
Meaning, if a $400 emergency happened today, they could not cover it. The average individual in America, land of the free, home of the brave, not even my country, Africa,
Yeah.
Ghana,
Right.
you know, you're talking about the wealthiest nation on the planet, where the average person is a $400 emergency away from basically going into financial distress. And when you're in financial distress, that means that you don't make enough money to sustain, meaning your expenses exceed your income. And that's basically being on the verge of bankruptcy. So yeah, it's quite scary, the stories that you hear. And it's like, man, are we not making enough money?
Yeah.
Is it that we're not making enough money? Is it that we're spending too much money? Um, it's a mixture of things. It's a multitude of things, but it all comes down to the discipline. Do you have a budget? Are you saving money? Are you investing the money? Some people don't invest any money. And so inflation, which is the diminishing purchasing power of your money, is basically eating up your finances, because now if you're not investing, earning a return on investment, and inflation a few years ago was at like 9%, then you at 0% versus 9%, your money just lost 9% of value.
Yeah.
And so when you compound that over time, that could be a recipe for disaster for sure.
And I guess, one thing that comes to mind when you mention that, compound interest. A lot of people do not understand compound interest and how powerful it is. A lot of people end up, realizing it in terms of debt, credit card debt, student loans, et cetera. How would you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to invest money. Compound interest, Albert Einstein said, is the most powerful force in the universe. One of the most intelligent human beings on the planet, mathematician, scientist, all the above. He said, compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe, Albert Einstein.
Wow.
Right. So when somebody like that, a historical figure like that, says something like that, you got to pay attention to it. And so basically, you have to be investing your money. And yes, there are such things as picking the wrong investments, being in the wrong investments. Trust me, I have my fair share. I'm actually selling an investment tomorrow that was a pretty bad investment. So I know it. I feel the pain. I know the pain,
You
right?
know it. Yeah.
Exactly. So there are definitely such things as wrong investments. But if you follow the methodologies, if you follow systems, like, hey, choose index investing. Invest maybe in the S&P 500 index, composed of the top 500 companies in the US, right? If you just did that, you're probably going to be earning on average 10% on your money every single year. As a matter of fact, one of my all-time idols, Warren Buffett, said if he could go back in time and let's say he had the same amount of money, he'd throw his money in index fund and just call it a day, right? No
Right.
true
Right.
headaches, no hassles. It's plug and play basically. And
Just
so
throw it right in. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And on average, if you're just doing that, I've been indexing for the past 10 years or so. And just by doing that, that ultimately is going to help you accelerate your wealth, over time. And so you want to be on the positive side of compound interest, meaning you want to be on the receiving side of the compound interest,
Right.
not on the paying side. Yeah, you can have debts, with buying real estate, for example, where you earn income from your tenants, but you have a mortgage on the property, but that rent payment is higher than the mortgage payment. That's an amazing investment. And Robert Kiyosaki will tell you that is an asset, something that puts money in your pocket rather than taking money out of your pocket like a liability. And so the more assets you put into, your bucket of finances, ultimately, the more income you make, the more compound interest you earn. And that's truly the pathway to wealth when it comes to that.
I think, and another problem is education, as you mentioned already. I
Mm-hmm.
think back to when I was in grade school, there was no mention of money. There was no mention of a budget, taxes, really anything. There was no money related subjects being taught in my grade school. And same thing in my high school. There was no, you didn't learn about taxes in high school either. And so you get out of high school and then you're like, okay, well, how do I do this tax return? Do I need to go to a professional? Luckily for me, my dad was an entrepreneur, so he showed me kind of the ropes, and the pitfalls and stuff like that. So I learned that way, but I think a lot of people don't really learn it, and so they never have a budget, and et cetera, et cetera.
That's right. That's totally right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Something I learned also is it doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you keep and what you do
Mm-hmm.
with the remainder of that. Like, are you growing it, or like you mentioned, is it just sitting in the account being diminished by inflation? But I think another important aspect is the psychological aspect, because there's the educational component, and there's also incredibly powerful marketing tools now being used to make people spend. And then they have the, like you mentioned, you don't want to be on the opposite side of compounding interest, but you have all these buy now, pay later, where they charge you incredibly high interest rates. So it's kind of like a cyclone of financial irresponsibility hitting a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Kevin, for sure. For sure.
So you mentioned like Warren Buffett. Who are some of your other like investment heroes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say Warren Buffett is definitely one of my investment heroes. I mean, he's arguably the greatest investor of all time. Unfortunately, he's about to pass the reins of his company, Berkshire Hathaway. Somebody else probably approaching, the inevitable. And so, truly, somebody I respect, truly somebody I honor when it comes to money and finances. Another person that I've tend to respect when it comes to money is Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Read his book, and he taught me the importance of paying yourself first, making sure that you're taking care of you. Of course, you want to take care of your bills and your obligations, but you take care of yourself. Take care of God, right? Pay your 10% and everything like that. So he has some very good principles in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then also Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, truly, truly somebody I respect. When it comes to money, he's truly mastered the game of money. So shout out to Tony Robbins. And then I would say Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone is another individual that I respect. He's a real estate investor, real estate guru, somebody who I followed. And then this one is a very uncommon response, but Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa, one of the greatest, arguably the wealthiest human being to ever scratch the surface of this planet. He's basically the former ruler of the Mali Empire. And they said basically they couldn't even measure his wealth. That's how wealthy the guy was. And unfortunately, he died at a very young age. But for somebody when you talk about abundance, when we talk biblically, we go in the Bible, it says, be fruitful, increase, multiply, right? Live life abundantly. The first person I think of is Mansa Musa. And I mean, this young guy, who ruled not just an entire country. Ghana was actually part of the Mali Empire. So he technically ruled our country as well. And this guy was loaded. I mean, when we talk about true wealth, he was truly loaded to the point where one day he literally was basically, all his camels and all his, you know, um, horses and all the gold. And I mean, it was a
Yeah.
true display
Right.
to where I believe they said something in the tune. It almost took an entire day for them to see how much wealth he had and how many people had to cross. So when we talk about true wealth, when we talk about true abundance, Mansa Musa is definitely top of the list for me, for sure.
So I know, like, now you kind of mentioned the Bible as well, and it says, like, it's better to give than it is to receive. And I also find that a lot of times when you give, whether it be to the church or others in need, God opens doors and blesses you. So that's like another aspect to consider.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Absolutely.
Sometimes it's just a blessing. Like, you don't know where this money came from or why this door opened, and it's really God, kind of paying you back for your own generosity.
That's
Um,
true. Absolutely.
so, like, how do you balance, like, okay, saving and giving with also like enjoying yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. So, I mean, in general, when you talk about balancing, when you talk about, it's about what is it that you value, and this is where the tax component really comes in that do you value giving your money a quarter, basically 40%, actually, not just a quarter, 40% of your hard earned dollars to Uncle Sam, the uncle we never knew existed in our families, but is very well the first person at the Thanksgiving plate, table with the biggest plate in his hand.
That's right.
Exactly. And so when it comes to wealth, right, you want to make sure you patch up any leakages. Taxes for me is a leakage in people's finances. We want to patch that up so that we can have more money to ultimately, do the things that we want to do. Everybody wants to give back to some capacity, right? Everybody wants investments that produce income passively over time. I mean, if I interview 10 people on the streets right now that, hey, would you like to have more income to where you don't have to work for it? Everybody would say yes. I mean, nobody in their right,
Yeah.
stable minds would say no, even
Right.
Warren
Right.
Buffett himself, right?
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And so, what I would say is, I mean, there's no true formula for me, but for me, 10%, right? Biblically, they talk about 10% give everything that you have, give 10%, whether it be given back to your church, to a charity, right? Just give back 10%. Um, and I would say sometimes you may not have the monetary means. And so at least have the service means, maybe the time means, maybe volunteer. So 10% off the bat, going towards donations. And I know when we talk about the ultra wealthy, they've signed the billionaire pledge where 99% they've committed. Get this, the wealthiest people on the planet have committed 99% of their wealth to charities, right? And we just need to give 10%. So it all goes back to the principles of money. It all goes back to the basics of money. But in general, I would say 10%. You want to make sure you're giving to your charity, and then at least another 10% towards savings. So everything that you make, put 10% towards savings. Um, and then when it comes to investing, I would say, try to put 20% away towards your investments as well.
Okay. And one question I would have for you: how does what role does God play in your life? Truly.
I mean, God is my everything.
Yeah.
I was basically on the show yesterday, and I was asked, "What motivates you? What moves you?" And I said, "The fact that God woke me up today and gave me breath."
Ah.
So for me, at the age of 16 is when I turned my life around and basically turned my life to God and discovered my purpose in life, which is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle. And ultimately, ever since that day of me discovering that purpose, life has gotten a lot better. Even through the negativity, I've always found ways to have a more positive mindset, a more vibrant mindset, do good things, do righteous things ultimately. So for me, God is my everything. God is my all. We're all on borrowed time on this planet. And ultimately, without God, I truly wouldn't even be here at all. So he's
Yeah.
everything for sure.
Yeah, I could say the same, just certain circumstances when I look back in life, it's like, oh wow, God opened that door for me, or God shut that window, shut that door because these people did not have your best intentions.
Yeah, like
Absolutely.
for me, following Jesus is super important because, like you mentioned, this world is temporary. So we often spend a lot of time building this earthly kingdom, but eventually, it's going to come to nothing. But also just getting back to the earthly things, I think generational wealth is also important. Like not just having something for you, but to pass down to your lineage.
I mean, I would say you always want to leave a legacy on this planet. And to be quite frank, it's not just because it's a sexy thing to do or it just sounds cool. It's like everybody else is doing it. It's
Yeah.
not because of that. I mean, when we talk about biblically, it says a man shall leave an inheritance for his children's children. Like not just his kids, by the way, right? We're talking about his kids' kids. So that lets me know, I tend to read the Bible a lot. I've actually read the Bible 3 times, my fourth time reading it from head to toe. I'm actually doing more of the interpretation version of it. And when I look at the Bible and I compare it to real life, and I know not everybody believes in God and everything, which I understand, right? Not that I respect it, but I at least understand. I understand where they're coming from with that.
Right.
But basically, what I would say is that it is important to leave an inheritance. It is important to leave a legacy behind because the thing is, it's like if we're not striving for that, then what are we really living for? Like, yeah, you want to enjoy your life, you want to have a good time and all that in moderation, of course. But when I read words like a man shall leave an inheritance for his children's children, that to me means I got to go to work. I have an obligation to fulfill.
Right.
Because something is telling me that I need to leave an inheritance and ultimately leave a legacy. I mean, I would say, for example, someone who doesn't have life insurance. I mean, to me, that is one of the biggest sins on the planet because then it's like, if you're talking about leaving an inheritance for your children's children, what better way to do that than through something like life insurance, for example, which protects your life and ultimately gives that inheritance to your beneficiaries and your heirs essentially. And so
And
with that
tax
being
free.
said,
At
and
that
tax
being
free, right?
said,
There you
yeah,
go. The gift that
tax
keeps
free
on
money.
giving.
Tax free
Exactly.
money.
Exactly. There you go. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so for me, it is very important to leave an inheritance. I would say balance enjoying life. Like you never want to be that person that waits to retirement to enjoy life. I mean, there's a story about people who retired and they were very frugal. They never went anywhere. They never spent any money. They never went on vacations. Lo and behold, they retire and they pass away. And I'm like, that is the ultimate example of how to not live life. You want to enjoy yourself, travel, right? Go see the
Yeah.
world, go see God's green earth. But you want to make sure that you take care of the people that you brought to this world and you truly care about as well.
Yep, exactly. Something I had to learn as I got older was stop trying to be so extreme. Like, initially, like I would say maybe my teenage years. So
Mm-hmm.
my background is in accounting as well. I wanted to get into the whole mutual fund business and everything. And, you hear about like you need to take every single dollar you can and invest it because of time cost of money, all of that kind of thing. Like, but the reality is that um, there's things much more important than money. Money is a part of the equation, but when you start being super extreme, it kind of puts you in the wrong mentality. So I think like one of the core concepts of the Bible is just moderation, controlling the flesh. Not saving is good, but you don't need to be so extreme that you're neglecting family, friends, enjoying life. It's just same thing with everything. Like be moderate in what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Moderation. Absolutely.
Exactly. But I would say this too, in that, I think one of the challenges of the Bible sometimes, and of course, everybody's different, but it's to what extent certain things are discussed, like what extent should we go? So I think that becomes a tough question because it says, be fruitful, increase, multiply. Okay, to what extent should I be fruitful? Should I increase? Should I
Great.
multiply? Should
Yeah.
I
Great
live life
question.
abundantly?
Great
Right,
question.
exactly. And so for me, you always, one thing that I've learned, the reason why I'm reading the Bible for the fourth time using the interpreted version of it, and like someone who I trust and like, he's breaking it down and everything, is to know, yeah, now that I know what are the righteous things, unrighteous things, what are the limits, what are some of the things to what extent should I go? Because when you talk about abundance, somebody can say, oh, yeah, you have abundance by definition is to have more than enough. And to some people's definition, that means they're selfish, right? And so now you all of a sudden you have this, conflicting statement. You have this conflicting thing going against each other. And so when I say nowadays, abundant, it's like living your best life that you yourself desire to be your best life, right? And so abundance by definition is having more than enough of something. But to me, it's simply living life abundantly, living life in full health, in
Right.
full wealth, your kids being in school, the best schools, just the best of everything. And yeah, you can have, a good amount of it. But I think one of the things that I found to be not a challenge for me per se, but to maybe, to your average layman, in that to what extent should I be abundant, and to what extent should I do some of these things that the Bible is saying to do, basically.
And one thing that you mentioned there, health. Health is unbelievably important, and just like money, we need to take care of it. We need to, make sure we're doing okay. But a lot of people, same thing with no budget, no common sense when it comes to money. A lot of people are also like that with their health, which I find incredible. But I mean, just look at the country, look at the U.S.
Yeah, we're living off a credit card, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that is a pretty amazing point because like it's like these corporations, these industries, they're incentivized to push you into unhealthy patterns, whether it be health wise, spending wise, etc. And you have the most effective marketing tools available. So it's up to you to be deeply rooted and have a strong foundation. Because even the Bible says, like, if you don't have that strong foundation, you're going to be kind of blown away. So yeah, just having these strong principles that you abide by, they're going to help protect you against, these industries taking you and leaving you in a position that you don't necessarily want to be in.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Totally right. Totally right, Kevin, for sure. Yes, sir.
So yeah, you kind of mentioned the like something that you also do is teach, share financial education. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I do personally over 100 workshops a year talking about taxes, wealth building, finances. We also have the Badu Foundation where you can check it out, badufoundation.org. And it's actually a 4-week financial literacy program that puts students ages 6 through 18 through a course where they sit together in a Zoom meeting for 2 hours each Wednesday in June. And basically, we're teaching them on budgeting, saving money, investing, entrepreneurship, scholarships, different topics as it relates to money. And the nice thing is, each year we pick certain students to give scholarships to, the most active participants. As a matter of fact, one year we actually gave a scholarship to every single student that was in the program because we received funding for it. But basically,
Nice.
I appreciate that. Upon turning 18, you get an opportunity to become an instructor of the program. So the whole notion of paying it for it, right? Teach a man how to fish and he eats for the rest of his life. And if that man teaches another man or woman how to fish, then they all eat for 1,000+ generations. All
That's
right.
right.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, financial literacy, it's all virtual usually. In the past, when I started doing this in 2016, I used to teach in person and all that. But, COVID-19 and the digital world we live in nowadays has allowed me to do it virtually. So just bunch of workshops, taxes, wealth building, finances, just helping educate people and, increasing financial literacy ultimately.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So okay, for somebody with kids, say like 7 or 8, like what is something tangible a parent can do to kind of ingrain good financial habits? Because like habits is really what determines where you're going to be. So maybe just take every time they get a dollar, have them put away a dime, or like what would you recommend for somebody who has small kids to get them into good financial habits?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So I would say number one, put them to work early. So hire your child in your business, or hire your child, let them do chores and let them do things. And what I would advise is having a pricing sheet. Okay, you take out the garbage, you make $5, for example. You know, you do XYZ, you clean the office, you do right. So allow them to pick, right? Give them that autonomy to start picking their tasks so that you can teach them the concept of choosing your labor, choosing your work, choosing what it is you want to do. So that's one tangible thing. Have a list of tasks, things to complete. And as they complete it, they put their name next to it. And then as they finish it, they put a check mark or, some sort of accountability sheet. That's another
Yeah.
thing. Teach
Right.
them accountability. And as they make the money, put 50% in a savings account for them, where you show them like, hey, let's go to the bank. Let's physically open a bank account. We're going to put X amount of dollars in there. And then every time you make money, half of it, I'm going to transfer to your savings account. The other half, I'm going to give it to you. Right. So 50% immediately goes to the savings account. The other half, give it to them. And also hand them a piggy bank. And let's see what they do with the other half. Right. The smart person is going
Right.
to put the other half in the piggy bank. And the person that's not so, they're the splurger. And nothing wrong with splurging, right? Nothing wrong with spending money from, here and there. But as a kid, I mean, do you really need any money? But basically,
Candy and stuff, you got to go
right,
to the candy
exactly.
shop. Yeah.
Exactly. So you hand them the half because they've earned it, they deserve it, they've worked hard for it, and say, hey, half of your check, I'm going to put in the savings account for you. Right. That's our agreement. And give them access, view only access to the savings account as well, so that they can see how much they're compounding. And then the other half, give it to them in a piggy bank. And then over time, as a bonus, start transferring some of that money into an investment account for them, a Roth IRA, individual retirement account for them, so that they can start accumulating money over time as well.
Yeah, amazing advice. So, just another lesson from the Bible says, train your child in the way they should go. So that's a great point that you mentioned, like take them early, teach them about the business or whatever, sort of occupational knowledge you have. That way, they're ahead of the pack. Because I know a lot of not a lot of parents, they have kids, they just leave them in front of their tablet and just hope that school and whatever they get on the internet teaches them to be a responsible citizen. But a lot of times it's not. They're going to be way behind compared to parents who are actively training their child to go in a certain direction.
Absolutely.
So you have to kind of dive into that a little more. Like, at what age do you believe it's important to like start teaching them actual financial concepts? Like, what age are they typically able to understand like budgeting and what interest is and things of that nature, from your experience?
I mean, I would say 6 years old is the Badu Foundation. That's our like minimum. That's our sweet spot. So I'll say at age 6, they should have some type of fundamental understanding, or they should start having some basic understanding of finances, how money works, what is money. You spend money, you save money. So 6 years old for me is a sweet spot. But hey, if we can start them early, start them at 4, start them at 5, when they can start talking and start going to school, then it's fair game to start teaching them money. But I would say 6 years old for me is a sweet spot.
Okay.
And so your foundation, you happen to teach kids as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's early as 6 years old. 6 years old.
Awesome. And like just for the audience sake, like what is the typical cost of your classes, and where can they attend it at?
You won't believe it, 100% free. Free
Wow.
99, 100% complimentary. You just go to Badu Foundation, BADU Foundation.org. And ultimately, you can sign up you can apply to be in the program. I would say we don't accept everybody, but there is a good chance you will be accepted if you apply. And yes, it's 100% complimentary, and you even can get a scholarship at the end of the program.
Awesome, man. So like what was your motivation of creating something like that, to where you're not necessarily profiting, but it's just entirely focused on giving back?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that it's one of those where we have clients that pay for our services, and then clients that can't necessarily afford it. And so pretty much on our paid service side, we have something similar where we teach, clients about budgeting, saving, investing, entrepreneurship, real estate, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's part of our financial coaching program. It's a paid program. There is a fee for it to be in the program. But we said, you know what? Let's do something for the community. Let's do something for the youth, for the kids. Something that's 100% complimentary, 100% free. Of course, nothing in life is truly free because you have to invest your time usually, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
financially, it's free.
Right.
So, yeah, basically, this is something that when we talk about legacy, leaving something behind for your children's children, this is what I wanted to leave behind so that, when my future kids get older, they can teach it to their kids and their kids will teach it to their kids. It's the one business that we can pass down to somebody else and say, hey, continue it. So it's part of that legacy, that generation, that multi-generational wealth.
Yeah.
Opportunity to pay it forward and say, hey, we do a paid services. Let's do complimentary services as well.
Awesome, man. So I know like investing obviously is one pillar of wealth, but entrepreneurship, I mean, in corporate America, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but oftentimes you're capped. Your salary is going to hit a certain ceiling and you're not going to make it beyond that. So if you really want to grow your finances, you might have to end up starting a business. So for somebody currently working a job and wanting to dive into entrepreneurship, what are some of the lessons that you would recommend to them?
To be quite frank, focus on your main hustle. Focus on your main hustle, and on the side, you can start a side hustle, and your side hustle should be something that you're passionate about, right? It can be walking dogs, it can be selling things on Amazon and all these third-party retailer websites. So ultimately, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is feed the beast that keeps feeding you, in that focus on your main hustle. But as you're doing that, start a side hustle where you're either going to turn into your main hustle, or it's going to be your side hustle for tax purposes, for passion purposes, but never, ever, ever lose sight of your main hustle, right? At any time. If you're planning to exit your W 2 job, then you shift your focus to your business and you start creating an exit strategy for your W 2 job, right? So, one big lesson that I've learned in life truly is, yeah, you can be doing all these things and dibbling dabbling and this and that and yada yada yada, but focus on your main hustle, stay laser focused on that, and if you don't like it, do something about it by start creating an exit strategy for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know Warren Buffett, he mentioned like circle of competency, sticking to that which you know, and he kind of avoided the tech industry because he wasn't familiar with it. And once it blew up, it kind of vindicated him. So yeah, I definitely agree that you need to kind of stick within a circle of that which you do well, because if you're too spread apart, you're doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, you're never going to be good enough to really excel at anything. Um, but yeah, to go back to taxes, that's one of the main destroyers of wealth. You mentioned that. So for somebody who's not really familiar, what advantages does a professional have over them doing their taxes themselves, like with something like TurboTax? Like, how much of a difference can you make in a typical person's situation?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So I just put it this way: on average, we save our clients $17,243 a year in income taxes. And those are clients that are in our tax planning service. Tax planning it goes above and beyond your typical filing your taxes and getting your refund, right? This is a strategy opportunity where we sit down, we go through strategy sessions, we go through different tax strategies that we implement throughout the year to help you minimize your tax liability and effectively maximize your tax savings. And so the difference with a TurboTax is that, yeah, basically TurboTax is an AI bot that is filing your taxes. The challenge with that is there's nobody in your corner that's guiding you through tax strategies to help you really reduce your income tax liability. So, in short, the benefits of working with a CPA firm, a tax advisory firm like Badu Tax Services, is that we're a forward-looking firm, we're a proactive firm, and ultimately we put together tax strategies to increase your tax savings. And on average, we save our clients $17,243 a year in income taxes.
Wow, that's amazing. What inspired you, originally to get into this kind of work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it goes back to, the story that I was sharing where I decided to pursue a career in accounting. But basically, when I touched my first tax return, I loved it. I loved it. It was just something about it that just made me want to continue doing it. And so, with that being said, it's just that, when you're doing something, you just have that burning desire to keep doing it. Like you just
Yes.
love doing it. That's what I felt when I did my first tax return. I said, let me learn more about it. Let me go on YouTube, watch videos on how to complete tax returns, the names of the forms, and all that stuff. And then met different mentors, different coaches along the way. So for me, it was from touching my first tax return after I discovered that accounting would be the career for me. And then I learned, yeah, you can make some good money as a tax advisor. Then also the the average individual's biggest expense on their books, which eats up 40% of their budget, is taxes. It's not their house.
Ah,
It is taxes, unfortunately.
yeah, it's funny. I think back to my dad. He used to be an entrepreneur. He's no longer with us, but
Hmm.
he always would tell me, okay, if you're filing your taxes, you got to do X, Y, and Z. He would tell me like, specifically what to do. But in his own life, he was doing his own taxes as well. But it's funny. The year he went to a tax professional, he saved way more than he had been doing his own taxes. So I looked at that like, oh wow, this talk about learning principles. I've learned like a very important lesson there that go to a professional. I mean, if you want really good advice on legal stuff, go talk to a lawyer. If you need tax advice, talk to, you basically.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Appreciate that. Indeed.
Yeah, I think
Indeed.
the reality is that we have to be honest with ourselves. You can't be good at you only have a limited amount of time and energy. You can't be good at everything. So uh,
Hmm.
somebody trying to be good at taxes as well as their primary career, that's you can only be so good because you have a limited amount of time and energy, and as well as inclination towards that. So I think something I've learned that typically from wealthy people, they know that they can't do everything well themselves, so they're able to defer, they're able to trust others to do that which they're not, that's not in their wheelhouse. So I think like a lot of people, in the working class, the mistake that they make is they think they're going to save more money by trying to do it themselves versus paying somebody who's a high paid professional, because that's what they do all day. You're never going to be as good as them at that.
Absolutely. That's a good point. That's a very good point for sure. Yes,
So
sir.
like outside of like taxes, finances, etc., what are some of the things that you're into?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, basically, I'm a parallel entrepreneur, and so all of our businesses are related to each other. We have a team of about 100 people that are across the entire enterprise, Badu Enterprises. So, another business is our real estate investment company. We invest in apartment buildings in Northwest Indiana, Hammond, Indiana specifically. And we found a lot of success in that market. We tried the Chicago, the Illinois market, didn't work out too well for us. And so the Indiana market, though, has done great things for us so far. And yeah, we buy apartment buildings. We try to aim for the bigger ones, the 16 units, the 10 units, the 20 units. Sometimes we'll do some smaller ones, the 2 units, the 4 units. But yeah, we buy them. They're already stabilized usually. They just want us to have maybe a better landlord in place, maybe a better management team in place. So
Right.
we have boots on the ground and management team in place in Indiana right now that handles the management of those properties as well.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
So how would you say real estate compares as an investment vehicle to something like investing in an index fund? I know it's more hands-on, you have to deal with tenants, etc. So like what would you say are the benefits of going with real estate versus directly investing in stocks and bonds, etc.?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say that for me, real estate is the best asset on the planet. It is the best thing possibly that you can own when it comes to investments. I mentioned the index funds earlier, which is an amazing start. It's an amazing thing to put money into. But when it comes to real estate, I actually wrote a book on this. It's called The Legendary Asset. 6 reasons why you should own real estate. 6 reasons why you should own real estate. I'm happy to send this book as a bonus to anybody who's listening today. But in general, with real estate, you have cash flow, so the ability to earn monthly income over time, right? Positive, hopefully positive cash flow, not negative cash flow, but money that comes into your bank account from the rent payments. The number two is the mortgage pay down, right? Your tenants are paying down your mortgage every single month. As you're paying your mortgage, a certain portion goes towards your principal. And guess who's paying this mortgage? It's your tenants, right? It's your tenants. So you build an equity in the property over time. And then the tax benefits, second to none, truly the best investment on the planet when it comes to taxes is rental real estate, hands down. There's a thing called depreciation, the biggest tax deduction in the tax code. And with the new tax reform that just passed, the One Big Beautiful Bill, it actually allows us to claim more of a depreciation deduction. Depreciation is simply taking a percentage and multiplying it by the asset's value, let's say the purchase price.
Right.
And in this case, due to depreciation, you can do 25% of the property's purchase price by going through a tax strategy known as cost segregation or bonus depreciation. All right. The next one is appreciation. Real estate on average appreciates 6% per year across the market. So as the longer you own that property, the more it's going to go up in value. 10 years from now, the property that you have, it should, right? Keyword should, real estate bought in the right market is going to appreciate over time.
Should go up. Yeah.
Exactly. Second to last is leverage. The bank is going to give you at least 75% of the money to buy the property. You got to put down 25%. They give you 75%. Why? Because if you run off to, let's say, Ghana, right, my country, then that asset is still here in the US. They get to take it back if they wanted to, right? So they're willing to borrow, lend money to you. Last but not least is longevity. All these AI bots and these driverless cars and all this and that, they still need a place to live. And so with that being said, real estate will always be here. I'm standing on real estate right now. Everybody that's listening today is probably standing on real estate right now. So why not buy something that you're standing on right now?
Amazing. Absolutely. And Brian, did you have any closing questions before we wrap this up?
I guess, one question that comes to mind would be, would you recommend that people invest in things like laundromats or parking garages or parking lots? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my advice is similar to what Kevin was sharing with Warren Buffett. Focus on the things that you know. Focus on the things that you're good at. Focus on, he calls it your circle of influence. I call it your pocket of genius. Pocket of genius.
Yeah.
Right? And so whatever your genius at, invest in that. Because yeah, you can spend, there's thousands, there's millions of businesses out there. You can go out there and buy this, buy that. But if it's taken away from your main hustle and is distracting you from your job that you're meant to do every day, then to me, is it really worth it to pursue that route? Yeah, maybe for the short term, but for the long term, it may be more detrimental than it is beneficial. Are these good businesses to invest in? Is a laundromat a good business? Absolutely. It provides you with passive income. But as we know with passive income, right, if you've ever had something that's passive, it usually starts off active and then it goes passive. Even though they say, hey, it's passive like Amazon, third-party retailing business. All right. So these are excellent businesses, amazing businesses with the right level of time with the right level of expertise, research, a team. Yes, these can be amazing businesses, but just don't let it distract you from what you're mainly doing.
Yeah.
Let it be in addition to what you're doing.
No, that's great advice.
And for my final question, it'll be what are like three ways the average person, say the average person listening today, what are three primary ways they can help become better stewards of their money?
Yeah, I would say don't be ignorant to money, right? Don't be ignorant to money. Develop a better relationship with money. Just like you strive every day to develop a better relationship with your spouse, develop a better relationship with money. Have a real conversation with money. One of the exercises my business coach, my life and business coach, one of the first things we did, he said, write a letter to money, right? Write a letter to money, and it demonstrates your relationship with money. So have a good relationship with money. Number two, just basically budget. Ensure you have a budget and you're sticking to that budget and utilizing the apps. The different apps that you can use to track your finances and make it more automated more than anything. Not fully automated, but make it more automated than it currently is. And then always have savings, 3 to 6 months in the bank at all times, right? Of your expenses, 3 to 6 months of your expenses in the bank at all times. Please make sure it's there. If there's anybody on this planet that can teach you this lesson, trust me, you are listening to the right person for this, because I've been eaten up big time by over leveraging, over investing,
Right.
overspending, all the over things that you can do. So yeah, I would say, just make sure that you have a good relationship with money, you're budgeting, and then ultimately you're saving money as well.
Great advice.
Awesome, man. And to close this out, man, where are some of the places our audience can find you at?
Absolutely. So I would say definitely appreciate you both, Kevin and Brian, for having me today. Definitely appreciate being on your platform. Appreciate everything that you're doing. Appreciate Coda Conversations, right? Everything like that. And so my main way to reach me is my personal website, jeffbadu.com, JEFFBADU.com. This has a ton of resources, educational materials on taxes, wealth building, and finances on it. And also, you can contact me directly on that website. If you're more of a phone person, you can call 773-819-5675. That is 773-819-5675. Thank you both for having me today, indeed.
Man, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, and man, we have to get you back sometime.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir. Appreciate it.
Man, we really appreciate you.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate you for sure.
We'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch